Okay, and we're in the studio today with Galactic musician. I'm joined today by our co-founder and producer, John Owens. Say hey, John.
Hey, everybody.
All right, and today we're really blessed. We're in the studio with a talented musician, and you know, as long as I've been in Tallahassee, I've been hearing your name. So I'd like to welcome to the studio Ben Banks. Hey, Ben.
Hi, thanks.
Glad you could join us today.
My pleasure. I'm glad I could be here.
Big question is, and the reason you're here today is, you know, I hear people's names all the time. This guy, that guy, you know, great guitar player and everything. But the real question is, who's Ben Banks?
Oh, goodness.
That's what we're going to start off trying to find out. Who's Ben Banks? So first question, where were you born?
Lakeland, Georgia.
No kidding.
No kidding. It's a very small town, just about 19 miles outside of Valdosta. If you head towards Waycross, that's where Lakeland is.
Okay, and you spend your youth there? Or?
I did. I was born in a hospital literally right across the street from the house I grew up in.
Wow. Which
was literally 150 feet from the house my father grew up in. And yeah, I mean, 11 miles from Mud Creek, Georgia, which is where my mom was born and grew up.
I shouldn't laugh, you know. The only reason is because, you know, towns near where I come from. I come from Carolina Mountains, and the towns up there are Loafer Glory and Pig's Pen. There's upper and lower Pig's Pen.
Well, there should be. You know, I mean,
so did you learn to play music in what was the name of town?
Lakeland,
yes. Georgia.
Yes, I did. I was when I was a little kid. My mom noticed that every time I was around a guitar, I'd just kind of like immediately gravitate towards it, and I'd pluck strings and I'd put my ear to it and I'd listen to, something about the sound of the guitar really appealed to me.
Was there one in the house, or was it just when you were out and about?
Just when I was out and about. Once in a while we'd be at someone's house where there'd be one, and I had a cousin who played a little bit, a couple of them. And, she just kind of picked up on the fact that every time I was around, it was like, it's like a dog, being drawn towards the garbage can. You can't keep them away from it. And that was kind of me with guitars. So when I was 11, she bought me a guitar. It was a very cheap Sears and Roebuck guitar. And I took lessons from an old man in Ray City, Georgia, which is even smaller than Lakeland. Mm-hmm. But bigger than Mud Creek. And, it didn't take. He was teaching me to play skip to Maloo and read, notes, and I just wasn't into it. Plus I was too small. My fingers weren't ready for such a thing. Mm-hmm. So I stuck in a closet for a few years. And then when I was 15, a buddy of mine from just a few doors down had gotten a guitar, and he'd started playing. And he knew chords, and, I saw him playing chords. I was like, that's really different from what I was doing. And he's like, well, yeah, if you tune your guitar, and he tuned my guitar for me.
That makes a big difference.
Well, it certainly did, because these were the same strings that were on there when I was 11 years old. So
yeah, a little rusty probably.
They were a bit rusty, and but it didn't matter, because when you tuned it and you played a D, it's like, oh, that sounds like music. Yeah. Okay, now we're talking about. And I was, a little bigger, a little more able to stick with something, resembling practice. So I learned a few chords, and took a couple of lessons from a guy across the ditch, an older guy, and I was off to the races. I loved it.
Wow.
Yeah. When I was teaching guitar, I would always say, well, we'll learn these 3 chords, and after they learn 3 chords, I say, you can play hundreds of songs, and they're looking at me like, I can't play hundreds of songs. I said, well, 3 chords, you just need to learn the pattern, and you got it.
There you go. And once you learn that 4th chord, the 6, it's like you literally got every doo-wop song and half of the rock and roll songs ever written. Yeah, so, right. All you need is a capo then.
Did you get playing with other people when you were in this small town?
I did, actually. Well, the guy who showed me my first couple of chords and we sort of started jamming in my carport. And about that time, Lanier County, which is where Lakeland is, had started a band program at the school, a marching band.
Yeah.
And a couple of my friends had drums. And so they came over and they played drums while we sat there and played guitars. And, we weren't very good, but, it was a lot of fun. The feeling.
Oh, yeah, like when, something's happening here.
When it gels, when the drummer manages to hit 4 beats in a row that are in time, and you can actually play a chord on top of it. And another guy, he was like a friend of my older brother's from college. He came to Lakeland one weekend. He was a guitar player, and he showed me how to play bar chords. Mm-hmm. And I'd never played those before. But
how old are you at this time?
I'm probably about 16.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I was probably still 15. My brother's 3 years older than I am. This would have been, his first year in college. Yeah, I was about 15. I hadn't been playing for long, but I did have. I had gotten this Harmony electric guitar. You remember the old Harmony Bobcats that you could buy them at Sears? What a great guitar that was! And I had this little Fender Champ amplifier, which I can't remember where that came from, but I had it. And this guy came to visit one weekend, and he showed me, well, if you do this and do this, and you hit the strings, you can play a chord, and then you can play a half step up if you do the same. He just explained it to me. Yeah. And then he went on to explain to me that if you've got your guitar in tune and you listen to probably an 8-track tape or a record at this time, and you listen close enough, you can match notes. And I just happened to have Santana's greatest hits there. And Oh Ye Como Va, it's only one chord. And I found it, and like for the next, probably 20 days, I sat there, just jamming on Oh Ye Como Va. Me and my buddy Jason,
It's the rhythm, that's the heart.
Oh, it was so wonderful, and of course, a bunch of little South Georgia peckerwoods in a car park going, Oh Ye Como Va. And we didn't know what the rest of it was. We had to make up gibberish. And it probably just sounded horrible, but I was in heaven,
Now, was it just you, or did you have the drummers out there at this time?
I'm pretty sure we had drummers by that time. A buddy of mine, William Gilliard, was a drummer. A buddy of mine, Gordon Brogdon, was a drummer. My cousin, Winston Durrance, he played drums. There were a few guys. Drums were more popular than everything else because... you could play them without actually having to learn.
A lot of people start on drums and move on.
Well, having been in a band for years as a young man, I always found that the girls always went for the drummer. I don't know why.
Well, there's a mystique about them, isn't there?
Yeah, maybe it's the rhythm or something.
I don't know, because they're actually smiling at him, I guess.
Well, exactly. And, of course, at that age, when you're playing lead guitar, you're just up there crapping your pants, hoping you don't hit a really sour note.
Oh, what was that?
Yeah. And, of course, I got relegated to lead guitar for our very first gig, which was a talent show. And, of course, we played, we were going to play Freebird.
Really?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Well, I'd been playing for about a year, and I didn't realize there was such a thing as a slide guitar at that point in time. I just thought, wow, that guy really bends the hell out of those notes really well. And, I had no idea about how to create sustain. I could hear it, but I didn't know that, there was a, way to make the notes sustain. Well, electronics would have helped me quite a lot.
Then use the B.B. King methodology.
Exactly. That was for people with talent and experience. I needed a fuzz box, but I didn't have one. And we ended up playing a song called "Taking Care of Business."
Oh yeah,
by BTO. Yeah, and that went over real well. Just everybody went nuts. And then we did Freebird as an encore, and our lead singer, he was a very popular guy, and the girls all just loved him, and he was up there, being a rock star. And they had just started that band program like a couple of years before I got to high school, and it was still very new. But there's something about being in a formal music class that really does something for you.
Does it take the stress to another level when you've actually got to keep time?
Well, it does, yeah. But the beautiful thing about it is they drilled time into you.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, even to this day, I'm the worst rhythm Nazi there is out there. It's like I get very, very frustrated with lackadaisical timekeeping. You know, and it's a complex. I need to see a psychiatrist about it. But I mean,
I don't think
me,
so. I mean, my thing has always been to have a drummer that's got a good steady meter.
Yes.
And so I have always felt that the drummer keeps the time. And until my current band, where the drummer says, I spend most of my time chasing the bass, and I'd never heard that term before.
Well, yeah. There's a problem there, because to me, the bass player and the drummer must be, in sync. They must be simpatico.
Yeah.
And, if one of them's ahead of the other, you got to stop the music and say, okay, you guys have a talk.
Well, one of them's louder than the other, so
well,
that makes, when you're going live, it's just go with the louder guy.
I hear you.
So you're still in high school at this time, and did you have your own formal band, or were you just jamming with people?
Well, we had sort of a band, and depending on the week, some people would be in it and some people wouldn't be in it. Mm-hmm. But I jammed with a lot of the same people, throughout high school. A friend of mine named Steve Giddens was a big influence on me, because he knew how to play that riff for Taking Care of Business.
Oh yeah.
Which, dun, 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 your basic boogie woogie rock and roll rhythm. Mm-hmm. And when he showed me that, it was like, wow. I can play a lot of stuff with this. Yeah, every song that has that kind of sound to it, you can play it using those chords.
Yeah, he took Chuck Berry and basically took a couple of notes out of it, because he could go dun 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 dun, he could dun dun dun.
Yes,
take some notes out, and I got Taking Care of Business.
Which brings me to something I'd like to say. I think Randy Bachman is a very underrated guitar player. That guy should be respected.
Yeah,
he's fantastic.
Well, when he was in
Burton Cummings
with
band?
Burton Cummings band, Guess Who? Yeah. When he played in the Guess Who, he had Burton Cummings also playing leads. Mm-hmm. So he didn't take a back seat necessarily, but he wasn't all the pressure on him. Exactly. When he got to BTO, it's like, okay, you're it.
Yep, that's right. Well, he filled the shoes nicely, didn't he?
Oh God, yeah.
And what a songwriter too.
There was a special I watched a while back, and it was kind of theatering around, and they had gotten back together, and Burton Cummings says, "Come on, man, play that song." Randy says, "Yeah, but you don't like that song." He says, "No, I like it now. Come on, play it." So all of a sudden he goes into Taking Care of Business, and the whole place just lights up.
Of course, yeah. Now, a great band, a bunch of great bands, and that's my head musically. I got stuck in the '60s real early on, and of course, coming up in the '70s is like, you got all this great music coming out. Stevie Wonder, the Brothers Johnson, bands like the Eagles at their peak when they were great, and
it was a Renaissance time.
It really was. I mean, it's just amazing what was coming out, and I didn't have access to any rock and roll radio. There was one top 40 radio station right there in Valdosta, and then there was another one over in Waycross that played almost the exact same. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, I think they used the same tapes. It's like you could flip from one station to the other. And a lot of times they'd be playing the same song almost at the same time. And, so that's what we had. Mm-hmm. And we had, once in a while you could get Gulf 104 out of Tallahassee, but the weather had to be right.
Well, what was the music format coming out of that?
Out of there, God, a whole lot of, it was whatever was top 40, and it really was limited. They didn't play a lot of songs. Mm-hmm. Now, earlier, I remember hearing some David Bowie, and I remember hearing, some Foghat and Humble Pie, stuff like that, made it onto the radio. But by the time I got old enough to drive, when I was 16, right when I was really getting into the guitar, the format really went towards dance-oriented music, specifically disco.
Oh gosh, yes. Okay, here comes John. What's Travolta?
Yes, yes. The Bee Gees. They took the world by storm, and all of a sudden, everybody was. Not only were they the main, some bunch of songs being played, everybody else that got played was trying to sound like them. So it's like you'd have to hear the Bee Gees, and then you'd hear the Bee Gees again, and then you'd hear Andy Gibb, and then maybe Leo Sayer. And, then they had these bands like, Pablo Cruz and Air Supply, great bands. But God, enough of the major seventh chords, guys. It's like play a power chord for once, maybe. And, music just stunk. At least to me, in my limited understanding.
Well, I didn't like the disco area too much.
It
but
didn't
the Bee
work
Gees
for me.
were the prime of that. They were good at it, but
yeah, and in hindsight, they had great stuff. They really did have some excellent.
A lot of
music.
Classics now.
Truly.
You play their songs, and everybody goes, "Oh yeah,
they remember it."
I just recently saw that guy from the Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl, doing a cover of "You Should Be Dancing," which may be one of the all-time greatest funk tunes ever written. It's fantastic, but of course, if you're living on a steady diet of that, day in and day out, for months and months at a time, you're going to find a way to hate it.
There's not really much room for a lead guitar player and all that, is there?
And that was the bigger problem. It's like they just eliminated the need for guitars altogether.
Yeah.
And basses, too, by the way, because by that time they decided they were going to start doing bass tracks with keyboards. It's like anybody playing a stringed instrument. It's like, well, you're SOL, unless you liked punk.
Yeah.
And, that wasn't quite filtering down to South Georgia at that point.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back just a little ways. And who were the major influences on you musically?
Well, when I was
obviously it wasn't the Bee Gees. I just wanted to get that clear.
Although, I got to give them their props because I pulled some stuff out of what they were doing. But when I was my earliest memories of music that wasn't like my mom singing to me is Hard Day's Night on the radio, and my mom knew Hard Day's Night.
Yeah, that famous chord, ring.
Yeah, and of course, there was a lot of other Beatles being played at that time. It was kind of like the wallpaper on the first few years of my childhood. Sure. It was just everywhere, and I remember having heard later on in life, when I'd go back and I'd be introduced to Kinks records, I'd go, oh, I remember that.
Oh yeah, it really got me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that one struck a real chord with me, and I remembered it. The Who, the Animals. It's like all those guys. They were being played on radio back when I was a baby and up to 5, 6, 7 years old.
Well, I got to ask you then. Right, what year were you born in?
63.
Okay. So because I remember the Animals very, very vividly. In my school years. Okay, that's what I was wondering. So you were right there when the Beatlemania hit America.
Exactly. And I had no control over the music I was listening to. It was just being piped into me, and I was kind of taking it in all passively. But the Beatles definitely stuck in my head.
Oh yeah.
Whereas a lot of other stuff didn't.
I think John and I, we were like the Cream, weren't we, and stuff like that. Led Zeppelin, all the heavy stuff was coming.
I kind of started with the Ventures.
Yeah.
And
Walk,
the Beach
Don't
Boys
Run.
Came,
I love those guys too. Great surf music is great music, period. It really is. And of course, my mom and dad had a good collection of Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass.
Oh yeah, I heard them too.
God.
Yeah.
Taste of Honey was like one of my favorite songs. I burned the 8-track tape out on that one.
Oh yeah, and of course the work song, Tijuana Taxi, things like Little Spanish Flea, all that stuff kind of peppered my childhood. One of the biggest albums that stuck with me, though, my mom had a copy of this Coasters album called Coast Along with the Coasters.
Yeah,
had Little Egypt on it.
Oh my gosh! Well, I just remember the Elvis version of that.
Yes, as everybody does, and everybody remembers Elvis's version of Girls, Girls, Girls.
Oh yeah.
But the Coasters did that too. It was on that album, and that's just a fantastic album. Anybody if you've never heard it, you can get most of it on YouTube. It's worth listening to because it's just fantastic.
I want to go back and listen to it sometime. The only reason I say that is because we did some beach music for a while, and one of the songs was from the Coasters, but they called it Shag. shag music.
Sure.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun,
That's the
dun, dun.
60s. That's the 60s.
So who were the main influences that influenced your guitar playing?
Oh,
Would
God.
you look at?
Well, Carlos Santana was like the first one where I really sat down and said, I'm going to learn what this guy's doing. I was a Stones fan before I was a Santana fan because the very first 45 my mom ever bought me was not Satisfaction, Jumpin' Jack Flash,
Oh, yeah.
backed with Child of the Moon, and I just wore both of those out, completely. It's like, that song Jumpin' Jack Flash
Yeah.
was like such a huge. That one was significant to me. It's like that meant rock and roll. But the B-side, Child of the Moon, almost unknown these days, but just a great song, a great piece of psychedelia by the Stones, written during their Satanic Majesties era.
Yeah,
And-
we're doing Jumpin' Jack Flash right now, but to me that's just a song that has so much energy. That
does.
bum, da, 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 da,
Well, if you ask Keith Richards, ask Keith, what is the definitive Rolling Stones song? Most of the time he'll say Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Yeah.
That's the one where everything just came together and everybody was in sync.
Right.
And I can see it, Allman Brothers were kind of big on my
yeah.
radar.
Dickie
early
or
on.
Dwayne?
Well, I wasn't aware of them until after Dwayne was dead.
Oh, okay.
Because they weren't playing a lot of them on the radio. But,
No.
After Dwayne died, they started putting Blue Sky on. And, that's one that I go back to. If I may digress, I will say that I think Blue Sky is the most perfect electric guitar song ever recorded.
Yeah.
Because, it's just this great, simple little melody with a brilliant hook to it. And or like 6 different brilliant hooks to it. And then it's got like 3 minutes and 30 seconds of guitar duet between Dwayne and Dickie. And, they're both just at their peak, and they're both at their most, they're most together on that song, more together than on anything else. And it's just like this perfect work of art.
Well, I think after Dwayne passed, Chuck Leavell came in.
Yes.
And they introduced the piano doing the harmony parts that
right.
Dwayne would have done.
Sure.
It changed things a lot.
Well, it did, and Chuck was, hyper capable. It's like he could certainly take care of himself.
He played boogie woogie in any form.
Exactly. You remember Les Dudek?
Yes.
Yeah, he played with him for a while too. He was basically the second guitarist for a while.
Yep.
And rumor has it that Dickie said, "Look, we don't really need 2 guitars, So thanks for recording with me, but see ya."
Sounds like Dickie.
Yeah, I've heard that. But
Well, I got to ask you now, how old were you when you made the move from Georgia to Tallahassee? It's southern Georgia. Some people say.
well, I went to college in Athens. University of Georgia. I'm one of the few people that managed to accomplish, getting a bachelor's degree in only 8 years there.
Yeah, well, you want to get full and pleasure and enjoyment of it.
Yeah. Well,
Experience.
to be fair, I did change majors a number of times, and landscape architecture, which is what I got my degree in, is a 5-year degree. That being said, I really didn't want to leave that town. I was just having too much fun there, and the music scene was just outrageously great. I mean, a lot of great music being made, way more mediocre music, and some downright horrible music too. But there was always a crowd. There was always an audience out to support the bands, and it was just a wonderful time. You know, I played with a band called the Perforated Squares. And I know. Plus a number of unnamed entities that we'd kind of shove ourselves into whatever situation we could get a gig.
Were you with one band during that time, or you just kind of
float? No, I floated around a lot. The Squares was the only band I think I ever got paid to play in.
Oh.
Which that was kind of cool. No, we didn't get paid much.
But playing music live in the college scene is pretty hip.
My God! Yes.
Opens all kinds of doors.
It really did. It was.
Ben's kind of one of those creative people where you are both visually, you work in the visual field, being a landscape architect, and you also write music yourself, quite a bit.
Indeed.
And he's done, performances where all you did was play your original music here in Tallahassee.
Well, I have. As a matter of fact, that's really what I concentrate on these days. It's like I'm never going to be a great guitar player, and I'm certainly never going to be a great singer. But I think I got something to offer as a writer. I think I got a very unique perspective, and I think I got some good ideas.
Yeah,
so
a lot of his songs are pretty fun songs, and
well,
interesting. He's really got lots of lyrics, and it's amazing the lyrics and the stories he tells with his lyrics.
I've had a lot of complaints about how many lyrics I have in each song.
You got to remember all that stuff.
You like Jack Johnson or Bob Dylan?
Oh, of course. I love both of those guys, by the way.
I know, but there is no meter. They just keep talking until they hit the next note.
That's right. And it works for them.
Yeah. So how'd you get to Tallahassee?
Well, when I finally graduated from college in 1989, I came back to South Georgia for about 3 months, I guess it was.
Mm-hmm. It's long enough to realize I don't belong here.
Yeah. I was just kind of taking a rest.
Too big for this town.
Well, it wasn't so much that I was too big. I was more like I'm a little too different for this particular Bible Belt area these days. I didn't fit in. Plus, I wanted to go see the Dead. They were playing out in San Francisco for New Year's Eve, and by that time I had really sort of plunged myself head and shoulders into the whole Grateful Dead scene. I loved their music. I still do. I think that's one of those bands that if you never really get around to experiencing what they're offering, it's like you're missing something. You're
it
really
was all
missing
about
something.
the live experience.
Very much. And I remember, when I first got introduced to them, I hear it and why do you people listen to this crap incessantly? It's like the same song for 40 minutes in a row, which is true, actually. Sometimes they did. But, you have to be there. You have to be in the middle of it. And, when you're in, the right frame of mind and you're seeing the show, it's like you get it. It's like it
you have to prep for the
lands.
show.
You do have to prep. Not everybody does, but it helped me.
So did you make the trip to California?
I did. I made the trip to California, and I had, I went to the shows and had a good time. I had some friends back in Colorado who were going to spend the winter there skiing and, bussing tables to make a living. So I went back and joined them and, spent the winter up in halfway between Vail and Beaver Creek.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was a cool
Beautiful.
winter. My God, yeah. And I learned how to ski. I'd never been on skis before that, and I've only been on them a couple of times since then. But, by the end of that winter, I was skiing the Black Diamonds.
Well, now I'm really intrigued. Okay. Why would you come from the mountains of Colorado? How did you get to Tallahassee?
Well,
try to explain that one.
On June 10th, I got a good job while I was there. I got a job first I got a job with a engineering company as a draftsman, which would have been a great gig. But after my first day at work, it snowed like 4 inches of fresh powder, and I said to myself, I'm not going to work. So I called in and said, "Sorry guys, I'm not coming
Hitting
in."
the slopes, man.
Yeah, which is exactly what I did. And after that, I got a pretty decent job with an irrigation company, but I didn't really like that. And on June 10th, I remember it snowed, and I was like, "All right, enough of this."
June 10th,
it snowed, and I was like, "I can't take this. This is too much."
Yeah,
I had some friends
that
that were
anymore.
I just didn't have that kind of blood in me. And the Dead was going, doing the summer tour, so I took off and met up with some friends in Los Angeles. We went to some shows, and then we went to some shows in San Francisco, and then we went to some shows in Sacramento, and then we went to some shows in Eugene, Oregon. Wow. And I just kept going to show after show after show.
So I'm starting to get the sense here that you are a Deadhead.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, one of my longest time friends from elementary school, he was their product manager, and
Really? What was his name?
John Driggers.
Okay, never heard that one, but I mean,
he traveled with them and did their product sales.
Oh God, that must have been crazy. Because at a certain point in time, they got very, very authoritarian about their their copyrights and the product sales and whatnot. It got kind of ugly, but no, I mean, the Dead scene at a certain point in history was fantastic. I mean, I first saw them in 1983, and at that point in time, it was just magic. You could still get up fairly close to the stage with a camera and take a picture.
Yeah.
And you could still wander all around, get close, go far away, and people weren't just shoulder to shoulder smashed together like sardines.
Well, they were different kind of people, and their audience
Yes.
was different. It was not the Rolling Stones with Hell's Angels.
Exactly.
These people were really about love and brotherhood and friendship.
They were the true hippies and merry pranksters of the '60s.
Yeah.
It was a fluffy crowd. That's how I like to describe them. They were very fluffy. But after Touch of Grey hit the top 40, it's like they just packed the stadiums, and it was, the people were very different. It was a younger crowd, a little bit hipper, a little faster, a little cooler, a little slicker, better groomed, but they also didn't know how to hang in that situation without being a burden to the older people.
Right.
And it just got to be a drag. So I spent the next 18 winters in Chicago.
Oh my gosh! Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
He's glutton for punishment.
Boy,
Yes.
you don't do anything easy, do you?
I do not. I do not. I eschew leisure. That's I loved Chicago. It's a great town. It really is. And
Chi-town.
so much happened to me up there. I grew in so many ways, and I had so many fantastic and unbelievable experiences.
You're playing music this whole time?
Yes, I am.
Are you writing music during this time?
Yeah, well, that's when I learned how to write music. Really, it's when I learned how to write songs. I had a couple of friends up there who were both writers, and they were both songwriters as well. And I'll never forget. I sat there and watched this one friend of mine, Rob, and this lady named Hillary. They actually started a song with a phrase, and they crafted it. And like a master potter, they crafted this little germ of an idea into a full and complete pop song. And it was just so fan. And I just sat there with my jaw hanging. I was like, my God, you can do this?
So they started with a hook? Or,
Yes.
Okay. They took the hook and then they built around the hook.
He had the basic hook of the song, which, and we knew it was like, well, this is what's going to be built around it. And, I offered a little bit of help too, but the two of them, they were just really good with words. And they came up with this fantastic little 3-minute and 30-second song. It was just this gleaming jewel of excellence.
Perfect for radio.
It was. It was exactly what you want. Not too much, but just enough. And they got in and they got out. And when that song was finished, I was just flabbergasted. So I said, well, maybe I can try doing that too. And I had another friend there, Tom Orland, who he was a big Loudon Wainwright fan, which I've always been. And, I listened to a bunch of his songs. I'm like, man, you're just taking Yankee Doodle and putting different words to it,
It's only 7 notes.
Yeah, and it was brilliant what he was doing. And I mean, he's one of those guys, if you hear his songs, you're like, holy shit, man, you're gifted. You're not just a good songwriter, you're gifted. And so after being around these two guys, I was like, well, I better try my hand at it. Otherwise, they're not going to want to hang out with me. And I started writing, and I wrote some really bad songs, and I wrote some okay songs, and I wrote a few good ones. And I was swimming in the right ocean at that time.
Yeah, even statistics come into songwriting.
They do.
The bell curve.
We're definitely going to have to put some of his music on the
Oh, I'm looking
website.
forward to that. Yeah, absolutely.
Whole bunch
Select
of
some good ones.
Yes,
So
by
I-
all means, get the good ones. Don't use
Yeah.
the bad ones.
So I got to get you to Tallahassee.
I started looking around, and Tallahassee was the, first job within 2 hours drive of my parents' place that I could find. So in 2012, I packed up and I moved here, and been here ever since.
But you're reasonably new to
I am.
Tallahassee. Wow, I thought so many people I've met are born and raised here. You know?
I know.
So you're like me. You're a recent transplant.
I am a transplant. That's right. And it's been a circuitous route getting here.
Well, how did you meet John? John, maybe you want to your first encounters with Ben.
Well, we had a drummer, Dale Robinson, that was gathering people together and trying to pull together a band. And so one day he got Ben there, and we were sort of jamming away. And before you know it, we were playing like at Apalachicola Blues Festival.
That's right.
And,
Okay.
we had the Easy Street Blues Band, and we would, it was sort of like a conglomerate. Different people would come in and out of it. We knew different musicians, and Ben, you were a pretty staple there in that group.
It was fun. It was a fun bunch of guys to play with.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember it was like not a lot of hang-ups. It's like we didn't have to necessarily hit the right note every time.
Right, we were kind of funky sometimes.
We had fuzzy edges.
Yeah, but we had a good time.
We did. Dale's a great guy too. It's like shout out to Dale Robinson, who I actually met online. I saw a Craigslist ad of his.
That
while
sounds like Dale.
I was still living in Mud Creek, Georgia, and I was desperately looking for musicians to play with. And I went to the Tallahassee Craigslist ad, and there was Dale, looking for somebody in Woodville, Florida. And I did the math. I was like, wow, that's about 3 hours from where I am. But, that'd be worth it if he's, if he wants to play some drums for me, sure, I'll drive there.
Yeah.
But, he and I had a little dialogue going since, at least 2, maybe 3 years before I moved to Tallahassee.
Okay, well, we got you here now. We got you in the East Street Blues Band. You're a founding member. That's kind of what I'm hearing out of this.
Guess
He was
so,
one of the first ones.
All right. Well, we got some pictures you brought with us, and I want to talk to some of these. I want to find out. I'm curious. I loaded them up, and I said, "Who is this this group of people here?"
Well, that little blonde-headed kid down in the lower left-hand corner is me, and that's my mom in the hat, of course, and that's my older brother Cliff in the red bow tie.
This looks just like this looks just like me and my brother with the little suits and the bow ties and everything, and the white shirts.
Sure. Yeah, my dad bought us those suits. I remember that jacket. That was my brother's London Fog jacket. That was that was a very big deal.
Prestigious name,
Yes.
London Fog.
Yes.
What's going on here?
I'm eating a piece of bread, and my brother's holding the
Older
door.
brother. How much older?
3 years.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a big deal at that age.
Well, it really is. Yeah, I mean, 3 years is enough to kind of put you in completely different social categories.
Oh my gosh, yeah. My brother's 5.5 years older than I am. So when I was in 6th grade, he was graduating high school.
Right.
And in 7th grade, he was in college. So yeah, it's huge. But nowadays, you wouldn't know the difference between us.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Oh, this is my buddy Harry Hecker. He was actually one of my roommates in college. We had a big house down on South Millage in Athens, and he was just one of my buddies from that time. He moved into the house the same time I did.
He played music too, didn't he?
He did. He was a fantastic piano player. He was a classically trained musician who originally went to the University of Georgia as a music major, and he also played clarinet, and he played flute.
You were in the plaid shirt there, huh?
That was me. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not as obvious as I assume it is, but that was me when I was younger. And I think we had just come in from some swamp trip. That's a girl I dated in college named Rita Patel.
Wow. Is that your Ford car there?
No, that's somebody else's car. We were just sitting on it. But we're in front of Reed Hall, which is where I lived, which is right next to Sanford Stadium.
Well, I just got a vision. You're a bulldog.
I am.
Yeah, I don't know much about.
Yeah.
I'm not a very dedicated one, you know.
Yeah, dedicated bulldog.
No, I like them enough to watch them a couple of times every year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know, I got over the whole. I lost interest in football when Herschel Walker went to the New Jersey Generals. That was kind of the end of my interest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's going on here? This.
That's my band, the Perforated Squares. That was actually the very first time I played with them as a full-fledged member of the band. It's something called Farm Fest.
I see two guys potentially on the stage. Which one are you?
I'm the one on the right.
You're playing the guitar.
That's me playing the guitar. I was playing lead guitar.
Oh,
That's a barred guitar too, by the way.
Is that a Telecaster there?
That is a Telecaster. Belonged to a guy named Eric Carter, who went on to play in a band called Bloodkin. They're still around Athens and still well known. His partner Danny Hutchins just died this past year too.
I know that name.
Danny Hutchins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're well known in the underground. You know,
Yeah.
they're famous among the freaks. That's called Jerry's Kids. It was a Grateful Dead cover band.
Grateful Dead cover band.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
As soon as you say Jerry's Kids, I'm thinking that
Oh,
Jerry
yeah,
Lewis.
I know.
Jerry Lewis.
I know. You know, the worst part about it was there's actually a pretty well-known punk band out of Boston called Jerry's Kids. We didn't realize that when we named our band that.
Can you identify these guys in the?
Yeah, that's John McShane playing bass all the way over to the left.
Okay.
That's Jimmy Tomasello playing the green Stratocaster. That's Amir Nizam playing drums there. He's a great drummer too, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's me with the Paul Reed Smith and a guy named George playing keyboards there.
Excellent. Now, is this in Gainesville?
That's in Chicago.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gainesville. What? That's the Gators. Okay.
Yeah,
no,
wait a minute. You're going to get in
I'm
trouble here.
I'm getting stuff else. You're in Athens, Georgia. Okay.
Right.
So this is at.
But this is in Chicago.
Oh.
This is many years later. This is probably mid-90s. Yeah, mid-90s.
So you were doing music at night, pursuing some kind of proper job, as the Brits say.
Yes. I started doing freelance landscape design at that time, but I was also playing at that band at the time, and the band was making more money than my design job was. So I was supporting my landscape design habit with a band.
That's a kind of bass backwards, isn't it?
Yeah,
pretty much.
That's really unusual.
Yeah, it didn't last long either, but that's the Perforated Squares again. That's her name is Samantha West. She's married to the guy. You can't see him. I guess that's.
There's a bass player over here on the far left.
That's
Okay.
Paul Brown. He's our bass player. We had another guitar player named Britt West. He's the one that came up with the name. He married Samantha. And the drummer's name was Alberto Salazarte.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah. He's a very cool guy.
That's a very cool mixture, though, electric guitar and acoustic. I've always enjoyed that.
Well, you know, it's like we kind of swapped back and forth. That was very early on, too. I can't remember. I might not have even been a full member of the band at that time.
What do we have here?
That's at Dale's house. That was one of the early practices, I guess, for E
Right.
Street Band, right?
Yeah.
Or Easy
Easy
Street,
Street.
whatever we were calling ourselves. Yeah.
I keep
E Street
saying E
Blues
Street,
Band.
you know.
Yeah,
but
you just want to fall bass backwards into it, don't you?
I guess that's almost Bruce Springsteen. Is that his band?
That's his
E
band,
Street?
yeah.
It is.
You were the E Street Blues Band.
Easy
Yes,
Street.
we were Easy Street Blues Band, not to be confused with Bruce Springsteen, because we didn't do any of that. That's Mickey Hart. He's the drummer of the Grateful Dead, and he's actually also a pretty good author too. I've bought a couple of his books and read them. He's an interesting guy. Yeah, worth checking
Taken
out.
at a concert you were at, I take it.
Yeah. My friend Tay Waller, if he ever listens to this, shout out to Tay. He was a pretty good photographer back in college, and he took a lot of photos at Dead shows, and that's one of them that he that he got for me. So
this is days you had to actually develop it and put it on paper.
it was real film.
Yeah.
That's right. That's Bob Weir.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was telling you earlier, you should see the Netflix show, the other one. It's all about him.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Oh, yeah,
It's a
that's
good
right.
show.
You've seen
Good
it. It's
show.
worth checking out. Phil Lesh, great bass player, weird bass player. It's like he's not really somebody you want to emulate so much most of the time, but what he did worked.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And
Was that a BC Rich bass he had?
it was probably an Olympic bass. Actually, no, that's a Doug Irwin bass right there that he's playing.
Oh, okay. I just
Doug
saw that.
Irwin actually designed all of Jerry's guitars too. And
Here's
that's
Jerry.
and he's playing one of his signature Doug Irwin guitars. Those things are really cool.
Okay, well, he's a missed man,
Indeed, yeah.
Made a big difference in the music world.
Well, he did, and I mean, there was some.
We're jumping way ahead here now.
That's the Easy Street Band. That's,
Who are these guys?
that's
Dan Engel?
Yeah, Dan on the far left. And then there's me, and then there's Dale Robinson, and then there's John, and then there's
Rick
Christensen.
Yeah, I had to have a confession here. I do know some of these guys. I've played at one time or another with Dan and Dale both.
Uh-huh.
So good musicians.
Yes, they are, and great guys, and good friends, fun people to know. And that's the commentators. I occasionally sit in with those guys. Yes, the commentators and the turn-ups. They figure, the commentators is the band, and the turn-ups are the people who just turn up and play.
Right. But they're commentating.
Exactly.
Okay, are you in this picture somewhere?
I am. I'm playing bass over there. That white bass. That's me. Yeah. Incidentally, I love playing bass. I tell people all the time, in my next life I'm going to be a bass player. I'm just going to forget about guitars, anything else. I'm going to be a bass player.
Yeah, I remember one time you showed up for a jam and you got the bass, and we just kind of switched back and forth. But you really kind of took off with it. Well,
it seems to be one of those instruments. I gravitate towards it. It's a very natural place in the sonic spectrum for me. That not just that set of frequencies, but also that dynamic, the thump, the
sitting
pulse.
there in the pocket.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that the bass player is responsible for the rhythm, and the bass player and the drummer obviously must be completely in sync,
right?
But the bass player takes the helm quite a bit, and it's up to the rest of the band to pay attention and follow him.
Fill in the holes.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. I used to hear about Cream all the time, about Jack Bruce was this lightning bass player and stuff, and I started watching him later as an adult, and I said, he doesn't necessarily play lightning fast. In fact, sometimes he just plays a single note, but the emotional impact to the song is huge. It's absolutely huge.
Yes, and also the understanding of what the bass does better than any other instrument is critical. When the bass player understands what power they have and what you can accomplish by hitting the right note at the right time. Not only is that fundamental to what the band sounds like, it's also a huge responsibility.
Brings everybody back.
Yes. Yes.
It hits that root note. Brings everybody back together. I know this place. This looks like, don't wait, something Bowery Station.
That's the place.
Yeah.
That's right. That's Ken Gimmer all the way on the left. That's Mike Lewis next to him. That's Mike's. No. That's is that Mike or is that Anthony? That's Anthony.
Yeah.
Anthony Giles back in the back, the drummer. Jan DeCosmo in the front, next to me, and then that's me on the.
I got some great video that night of them playing. You see those two buckets out front?
Let me get back to that. The tip buckets.
Yeah, 2 buckets. One of them has a sign on it that says "Keep playing," and the other one says "Stop playing."
Yeah,
because it's a great joke.
It is
two
a great
things
joke.
Up there.
I like Anthony. I've played with Anthony before.
Yeah, Anthony's a great guy. I'm actually playing with him tomorrow night. And this is at the Blue Tavern.
Oh, yeah.
This is a line, we call it Ben Banks and the Backups. I'm not the one that came up with that name, by the way. That was either Jan or Cena Zipper. That's me on the left, Jan DeCosmo in the center, Cena Zipper on the right-hand side. And these two ladies are basically, they're my first two musical contacts in this town.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
they're the first two people who we actually sat down and said, let's do a project. And, you know, they were going to be doing a Beatles night up at the Legion in the winter of 2012. And they asked me if I would lead it up. So I said, yeah, as long as I can pick the songs, I'll do that.
Yeah, and he picked probably a lot of his originals because that night at the Blue Tavern.
Well, yeah, at the Blue Tavern, I that was all originals.
All original.
That was
that
all
night.
originals. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, here we have a close-up of you
That is me.
doing an emotional expression.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, that's pretty much my range of emotion right there.
Well, no, I mean,
But
to me,
I had a haircut at that time.
yeah, to me, vocals, you know, the emotion that you can express with that is just
Sure.
it's huge.
Absolutely.
And so many people don't. You know, the dynamics or the force or the lack of force.
Well, agreed.
You know, to me, that's everything.
Well, if I were a better, you know, vocalist, I think I would probably concentrate on it a lot more. I have a very limited range. Is like I don't have. I've got about an octave and a half I can do at the very best. And
who are some of the greatest songwriters that we know
Oh,
in
well-
recent times? One just passed, John Prine.
John
I
Prine,
mean,
absolutely,
you know,
with a limited vocal range.
totally.
You know, if you want to talk about Bob Dylan and, you know, limitations on your vocals, it's like, well, there you go.
He had a lot of emotion, though, Dylan.
And, you know, I can still listen to Dylan's music and hear something new in it every time.
Great
You know,
songwriter.
there's something to be said for someone who knows how to write for their own vocal style.
Right.
And that's what he knew.
Okay.
I mean, you know, George Harrison, very limited range vocally, but, you know, wrote some of the truly classic songs that the Beatles ever put out. And saying that it's a classic Beatles song, that's saying a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Awful lot.
What's going on here now?
That is a band called Magnolia South, which is that formed during COVID. Me, I'm there in the center, obviously.
Yeah.
That's David Langston all the way to my left. Jim Crozier just to my just to the left, and then there's Dennis all the way to the right. Actually, it's, you know.
And back
Left and
behind
right.
there, there's a drummer back
There is a
there.
drummer back there. His name is Mike Stone, and
Oh, I know, Mike.
it breaks my heart he did not get in the picture because Mike
Yeah.
Stone is my Charlie Watts, but he, you know, he's back there.
We
But,
got another one. Let's see if no, we still didn't catch him,
yeah,
did we?
I looked at these
Yeah.
pictures earlier. There's not a single shot of Mike,
Oh,
which is a shame. But you know, he's in everybody else's photos.
somebody keeps moving the camera around trying to get Mike.
Yeah,
He was
get him in
was
there.
fighting the good fight, you know.
Are these the
Yeah.
two ladies that you had?
Those are the
earlier?
two
Okay.
ladies. That's Cena and that's Jan, and they sing backups and harmonies for me and just do a great job.
And you did a fair amount of original songs. with
We
them.
did. We
With,
did.
with this group?
Yeah.
We've played a number of gigs now, and these guys have been kind enough to let me introduce my originals into our repertoire. You know, that's very nice because it's hard to
Huge.
sell those. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Salt them in.
Yeah.
You know?
Nobody really wants to hear your originals. You have to sneak them in there, and, you know, if people like them, then you can do it again.
Well, you just got to say, here's a song by a local artist.
Exactly.
So I got a question for you now.
right.
Do you have a large stable of originals? I mean,
I
were you a
do.
prolific writer?
I do. I don't write every day, and I don't even write a song every year. But I go in spurts where I'll write like 2, 3, 4 songs all within just a few weeks of each other. And it seems to go that way for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a whole lot of songs that I just haven't finished yet. I've got them started and I can't quite get them finished. Some of them are 30 years old and I still can't quite get them over the hump.
Yeah, you're not happy.
It's kind of
with
hard to go
Right.
back to that period and fall back into it sometimes.
Yes, you're absolutely. I mean, you need to be able to, remember what it was you were thinking, what was moving you at the time.
Right.
But there's another problem with it. It's like if you keep sitting on a song for too long, it becomes too precious. It becomes too. I can't use anything but the most perfect line here. Otherwise, I'm taking this gem.
Right.
And I'm putting it in a 10 setting.
What, do you write with anybody?
No,
no,
I don't. I've tried, and I'm not good at that because it's, I like my own ideas.
Yeah.
Once in a while, I've written a couple of times with other people, but just in general, it's like I need to be able to have the freedom to make the adjustments as I see fit.
Yeah. I just hear so many fantastic songs that are historically with us still.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, this is how I started it. And then Paul or George or somebody
Right.
came in and looked at it and says, oh, they're going to the bathroom, are they? And you go, oh, that's it.
Yeah, no, I get it. I envy people who can write, as a team. It's, that's got to take a lot of pressure off you.
Well, we need a venue in town where people can go and perform original materials.
Well, we do have the Blue Tavern, which is a great venue.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of small, and,
It is,
and
yeah.
I get the sense that there's a group that goes there.
Well, you're right. There's a crowd that likes to hang out there,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a certain crowd that performs there too.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky. Carrie, the lady that owns it now, she's been very kind to me about allowing me to come in and play my miserable music for her crowd.
Oh no, because you're gonna come across one of these days. Because it's a matter of time. You're going to play that one song at that one time, and somebody's going to say, that's it.
And that's what it's all about, It's
Absolutely.
like, when you accept the fact that you're not going to get rich making music, as a matter of fact, you're probably never going to make a dime making music. The important thing becomes, well, one person hears what you're saying and they get it.
Yeah.
One of your songs touches somebody in such a way that it's like you're both on that same exact wavelength, and you make that brief eye contact, that moment of recognition. It's like, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're feeling. It's like, this matters, Well,
that's what music's about, isn't it? About changing people's lives or taking them away for a little bit from,
seems to be.
Or raising them up if they're in depression or they're feeling sad.
Yeah.
Or just putting a smile on their face.
There you go. Although, music can also be about putting a frown on people's face or making them miserable. I mean, if you were around during the punk rock era, it's like you realize it's like sometimes it's just about, extolling the worst aspects of humanity.
I grew up with Iggy Pop, and the
Oh, of
Stooges,
course.
So the original punk rockers.
Yes, the godfather of punk. I've always been a very big Frank Zappa fan too.
Yeah.
It's like I love Zappa. That's one of my early musical influences too. I was in a music or a record shop and I saw the album, and on the back of it, it had a song called "Why Does It Hurt When I Pee?" And I'm like, I've got to get this.
Yeah, Susan's always trying to get me to talk about moving to Montana, and I just sing to her, "Gonna buy me a dental floss farm."
Well, if you're willing to ride a pygmy pony, of course. Zappa is. He's one of those guys. It's like, I think he teaches us. It's like music doesn't have to be beautiful to be great,
No.
And lyrics don't have to necessarily be uplifting to be fascinating,
Yeah.
And he was all over those concepts, and God, he just wrote such great stuff. But
Well, John, you got any place you want to go with this, or any questions you want to ask?
Well, there's just this thing about, the punk rock stuff. I was in Norway one time, and I was in between Ghoul and Hool, and it was Al, and in this little town in the middle of nowhere, and I met these guys at a music store, and they said, "Oh, we have a studio downstairs. We record music." I said, "Oh, I do too," and I happened to have a CD with me. I was going to trade. So I got their CD, and I didn't have a player there, so I didn't get it till I got home.
right,
And I was just in shock because they were screaming and yelling and doing all this punk stuff, and it just didn't look like that was the type of thing that they would be into there, but they were definitely into it.
Well, there you go. I mean, punk appeals to the teenager in all of us. It appeals to that aspect of you that wants to kick a hole in the drywall and flip off authority. And, and one thing I will say about punk rock is like some of the funniest lyrics ever written emerged from punk.
Yeah.
Those it took me a while to really appreciate them, but once I finally did, I was like, oh, these guys, they really got something great to offer. Yeah. It's not necessarily guitars that are in tune, but they got something to offer, I
think it was about 16 or 17. My brother had the Iggy Stooges albums, the Stooges, and they had the one big hit was "I Want to Be Your Dog." Mm-hmm. And 1969's "Okay." Those are the two big hits off of that album.
Right, right.
I thought they were great. "I Want to Be Your Dog."
That's a great song. Later covered by Sid Vicious of the Sex Pistols.
Well, tell me, Ben, where can people find you? Do you have a Facebook page that people can go out and touch base with you and find out what you're doing musically around town?
Yeah, you can go to my Facebook page. It's just Ben Banks. You can also go to the Magnolia South Facebook page. I've also got one from one of my other bands called the Dadburn Varmints. There's still a Facebook page out for those guys.
That's a great band. Check them out.
Is it really?
Yeah, that one's a lot of fun. It's hillbilly music as filtered through middle-aged guys. It's fun. The Broken Hipsters. I can't remember if we've got a Facebook page or not, but if you ever see the name out there, come check us out. We're a bunch of old guys and we need the support.
Yeah, Ben plays a lot of different people around town, and you even surprised me one time. We were playing for a lady who had a birthday party at the Hilton, and you said, I'll play a couple of solos by myself. I said, okay. Yeah. And so we were sitting there, and all of a sudden you're playing these 1930s or 20s songs.
Yeah.
And she just, she thought it was the greatest thing. And
Well, she seemed to be the right age for that.
Yeah, they're complicated pieces of music, too. I was really impressed you could do that.
Well, once in a while I like to play something that's, beyond your three chords and the truth kind of concept. I went through a period when I was in Chicago. Chicago's a great jazz town. They talk about the blues scene there and the industrial music scene and the house music scene, but it's a great jazz town. I mean, you could go out any night of the week and see world-class musicians playing in small bars. Mm-hmm. And I got to see a lot of that while I was up there. And I got turned on to Benny Goodman while I was up there.
Sure.
Long time gone, but I just love that guy's music. People ask me who's my favorite guitar player in the world. I'll say, sometimes Benny Goodman, who he's obviously not a guitar player, but I just love his clarinet work enough that it's like it's worth stealing some stuff from.
Yeah, I grew up with my dad playing trombone all the time, and he played Stardust and all those songs from that whole era. So I was saturated in that.
Well, that's wonderful music, especially if you come off of a few years of listening to a lot of Neil Young and Grateful Dead. It's like hearing stuff like that. It's like, how refreshing.
Well, you know what it is? It's almost like you've been in not a black and white world, but a world with only 3 or 4 colors, and then you hear a big brass band, and it's like this whole palette of color.
Yes, it's
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure.
I had you here for over an hour, and I feel
time flies.
Yeah, and we'll hopefully get you back again.
I'm just down the road.
We're going to put links on on your page to all your Facebook stuff, and we're going to put some music out there, some links to the music that you've done, recorded.
Oh, one more thing. I have a Reverb Nation page where you can listen to all the music that I've got recorded.
Oh, okay.
On there. You can listen to it for free, and you can download it for free.
Yeah, we'll link to that.
Reverb Nation page, yeah.
All right. Listen, I appreciate you coming in, bud.
Well, thank you so much, Keith. I appreciate it.
All right.
For Galactic Musician, stay tuned. We thank you.